came crashing down, and there was nothing his primary doctor or a dozen other specialists could do about it. What started as forgotten words, misplaced keys, or a lost wallet was now threatening his entire livelihood, interfering with his cognitive abilities, turning him into a person I could hardly recognize. It hurts me to remember those long and painful nights at the hospital, sitting by his side as he was slowly losing the ability to recognize my face, with his eyes staring into the abyss. The only reason I'm talking about it today is because it also led me to discover a scientific breakthrough that can not only stop memory loss, but even reverse it, protecting your brain for the long run. What makes it so powerful? Because it targets the underlying root cause of brain deterioration. Something called a leaky brain that clogs your brain with toxic tangles and plaques, causing your brain cells to die. The problem that gets worse with every year, which means that if you don't target it now, it may be too late. But when you fix the leaky brain with a powerful remedy I'm about to share with you in a few minutes, you'll activate your body's natural protection mechanism, which shields your brain cells, instead of letting them die prematurely. Hi, my name is Alan Walker, and the information I'm about to reveal to you today could put me in hot water with quite a few of the most powerful executives at Big Pharma, who are trying to silence me before I reveal my findings. Those greedy fat cats don't want you to know that declining brain ability and worsening memory is actually a symptom of something much more severe, and that treating it with pricey prescription drugs doesn't really solve the problem, or that the real cause of your brain's deterioration comes from somewhere else, the small part of your body that's been breaking down for years. In fact, by the time you start forgetting little things like conversations, people's names, or appointments, you probably already have plaques and tangles accumulating in your brain, a problem much bigger than you realize. That will lead to age-related memory loss, and it's urgent that you treat this problem before it gets worse, because the brain changes become permanent and could put you at risk of accidental falls, losing your independence, or even dying prematurely. That's why I'm talking to you today, to share what I have found about the real cause of your worsening memory, and the breakthrough discovery at Harvard that can help you get back your old self again. So yes, in just a moment, you'll find out how to reactivate your 20-year-old brain and never have to worry about forgetting things again. It's something I discovered after spending hundreds of hours digging through medical research at the National Library of Medicine and talking to my contacts in the scientific community. As I was frantically searching for a way to save my father's brain, this memory-boosting breakthrough is what I call the most powerful memory accelerator known to science, because in clinical studies, it's been shown to boost your memory in just 1 hour. So if you're ready to join thousands of Americans who use this breakthrough with rave results to banish those memory lapses for good, while protecting yourself from potential loss of memory and cognitive abilities, then stick with me for the next few minutes as I show you how to get rid of those brain hiccups, so you can start feeling like yourself again, quick-witted and sharp-minded, like you did when you were in your teens. This video is short, but it could literally add years or even decades to your life. I'll share the studies that prove this in a moment. As I mentioned already, my name is Alan Walker, and I'm a health researcher. Every day I work to discover medical breakthroughs for a living. Yet I never would have heard about this one if not for my dad. He always had this larger-than-life type of personality. Smart, full of energy. He worked as an engineer his entire life, but suddenly things changed. He could no longer do the mental calculations in his head, and he had to retire from the job he loved. He stopped playing golf and cards, things he used to enjoy for decades. He no longer looked forward to going out of the house and refused to socialize. Instead, he sat on the couch all day and watched TV or napped. My mom said he was sleeping 10 to 13 hours a day instead of his normal 7 hours. Whatever was going on with his brain was turning him into a completely different person. So I made a point to visit my parents at least once a week, whether it's for dinner, a game of cards, or just to help around the house. And one particular event about 2 years ago really got me worried. As we were sitting on the patio, I noticed my dad acted a little strange, like he was confused and couldn't understand what was going on. When I asked him about it, he didn't say much, but it was obvious that he wasn't himself, and that he was suffering in silence from whatever was going on with his brain. When I asked my dad if he'd seen a doctor, he got angry and told me that I should have more important things to worry about than his senior moments. Because when you begin to age, your memory is not as good as it used to be. I didn't like his answer, but out of respect, I didn't feel like questioning my dad, a man who had always been so confident, strong, and in control of his own destiny. So I decided to just let it be and hope things worked out. Unfortunately, things went from bad to worse. As time passed, he was less and less interested in going outside or talking to anybody. His strange behavior episodes continued. He even laughed about how he started a car one morning without opening the garage door first. I was horrified, and I insisted that he needs to see a doctor. My mom agreed. Unfortunately, that was one of the worst decisions we'd ever made, because all the doctor did was listen to my dad patiently for about 10 minutes, then gave him some simple tests and asked him to draw a clock showing 10 minutes after 3. When my dad wasn't able to complete the task, the doctor said he has an early stage of age-related memory loss, and there's no cure for that. The only thing he could do was to prescribe Aricept, even though it really doesn't stop memory loss, but it slows it down somewhat. We were all devastated by the news. We had no choice but to follow the doctor's orders, so we took the prescription and left. Nightmares started when my dad started taking the drug. He'd been up all night, talking in a state of confusion, and during the day he was like a zombie, with no appetite, refusing to get out of bed because he was so tired. Even more alarming, he started to have big gaps in his long-term memory. Clearly, the drug was making things worse. It was completely disappointing. And when I looked through the side effects of this drug, I almost flipped out. Vomiting, diarrhea, tiredness, constipation, dizziness, fainting, headache, mental depression, pain, bleeding, and bruising. All these symptoms for a drug that didn't even do anything to save his memory. Was the doctor trying to help? Or was he just pushing the drugs for Big Pharma? We felt so hopeless, like there was nothing we could do and nowhere to turn. But then things took an unexpected turn. I can still remember this moment clearly. It was a warm Sunday afternoon in early May. Me, my mom, and my dad were sitting on the porch talking. My dad was in an unusually good mood and was telling an interesting story. I thought that maybe he's getting better and there's hope after all. Then my dad went upstairs to pick up some photos he was going to show me. Suddenly, we heard a loud banging crash. When we ran inside the house, we found my dad lying on the floor in an awkward position, unable to move. He'd fallen downstairs and was in excruciating pain. We rushed him to the emergency room, and when the doctors took some x-rays, the results left us in a mild state of shock. He fractured his kneecap and 6 ribs. It seemed there was more going on with his health than we had ever imagined. His brain was now deteriorating fast, causing him to lose balance as he walked. He was also losing muscle strength, which made walking even more difficult. According to the doctors, brain degradation was the reason for his fall, and because my dad's case was so advanced, there's nothing more they can do. It was only a matter of time until his brain shuts completely. The horror and disbelief I felt were simply overwhelming. Horror that my father's brain went downhill so fast, destroying his memory, his motor functions, and even his ability to walk. And I could not believe that it all started from simple forgetfulness and a few senior moments. In fact, I wasn't ready to accept the painful truth until I saw the brain scans, showing the 6 spiderweb-like plaques and tangles in his brain. I was furious that with all our technological advances, our modern medicine still had no answer to this problem, and that my father's case was far from unique. 6 million other people in the U.S. are suffering from pneumonia, frequent falls, and ability to care for themselves because of brain deterioration. Seeing my dad lying helpless in a hospital bed was the reality I could not accept. So I began a frantic search for a solution, racing against the clock to save my father's brain. I was determined to use my background in medical research to see if I can find a cure. It seemed so helpless, but what did I have to lose? So I went to work like a madman possessed, spending every waking hour researching. At first I asked myself a simple question: what causes us to lose memory in the first place? Turns out that scientists had no clear answer to that. Sure, it's possible to become forgetful if you're sleep deprived, taking certain types of drugs, smoking, or drinking excessively. But my dad wasn't doing any of those things. He'd always kept himself in good health. What about those plaques and tangles I saw on my dad's brain scan? Could that be the reason for his memory loss? I started to investigate and found that they are special proteins called amyloid beta and tau. Research communities agreed it's a common characteristic for those who suffer memory loss. But here's where it gets interesting. For years, scientists thought if we could just get rid of these plaques and tangles, the brain will be like new again. Pharmaceutical industry spent billions of dollars to come up with a drug, but in the end, getting rid of those things didn't do anything to improve memory, which is why currently there's no drug that could cure memory loss. But in 2017, Harvard scientists made a shocking new discovery. It turns out those plaques and tangles in the brain are actually working as antimicrobial agents, which means they're trying to protect the brain. And big pharma drugs were trying to remove them from the brain.